Well, I went to stage school and I'd been there since I was 5 years of age. So during that time, I did films, adverts, modelling, television, plays, shows over the years. And then I danced at school, I acted at school. We had limited education in the daytime. And we went out for auditions to get parts in films or adverts or modelling. And many times when I was out, other stage schools would be there as well, other children. Really the same mould. So if they were looking for a blonde with blue eyes, there would be lots of blondes with blue eyes. And then eventually, when I was 14, 15, I used to go almost every week to Top of the Pops to dance there. Claire I first met when I was on an audition for an advert, along with many other children. I can't remember if I got it, or if Claire got it, or who got it. Too many years have passed for me to remember that very first audition. And then I subsequently saw her a few times, again at auditions, and then we both got this audition and we did knitting patterns, and on the day of the photographic session we were working together and spent the day together and became friendly. And after that, when I used to see her on auditions, we'd always chin wag with each other, and we liked each other, and so we weren't rivals. We didn't feel we were rivals. I was hoping if I didn't get it, then Claire would, you know. And then eventually I met her at Top of the Pops. She was a good dancer, and she was very beautiful. That's one of the things that stood out about Claire. She's a very pretty girl. And she was funny. She also had quite a serious side. She kept a diary and she wrote down any of her experiences, even at auditions. I would often see her writing. I don't know what she put always in the diary, but I figured it was what was happening to her at that given time. But she was fun to be with. Yeah, a nice girl. If we'd lived near her, we would have most probably been even closer friends. She told me she'd been adopted and that she did have another name. So those are little things that one shares with a friend. It was big in its day, Top of the Pops, which it was for another 15 years after we went there. As for thinking it was a show to make us famous, no, I never went there on that. I went there most probably, in my mind, to be a dancer, and also it's like being in a discotheque really when you're only 15. You know, you're not allowed into discotheques, so it's really almost the next best thing, you know. But it wasn't there because there was famous people there, because throughout my time as a young actress, I'd met many famous people, so I was not in awe of them, and I don't think Claire would have been either. In fact, most probably lots of my friends who came with me to Top of the Pops, it was just some social fun after school. We just had to give our names and you got taken through to the Top of the Pops area. Obviously we're not going to dance in our school uniform, so we were allocated an area to change. Some youngsters, and certainly older people, would arrive already in their day, evening wear dance thing, but us as children, we arrived in uniform. And so we changed into hot pants or mini skirts or mini dresses, high heels, some makeup on, and because we were, in a way, professional dancers, we were often put in the front near the DJs or where the groups would be singing. So there was a lot of older people there as well, as in 17, 18, 19, 20 dancing, but we were sort of young school kids of 14, 15 and maybe 16, like that. We were always made to feel quite special. Some girls were invited back to dressing rooms. I only went there once to a dressing room, and I can't remember which DJ's dressing room it was, but there was a few people in the dressing room at the time drinking. Slightly what I might consider inappropriate behaviour with girls. I only had someone try it on with me once, and I sort of smacked their hand down, and I made excuses to go to the toilet, and that was the only time I ever went into a Top of the Pops dressing room. I knew that what might be happening in there isn't what I wanted to happen to me. After Top of the Pops, we were invited to go up to the bar, and again, names would be left as you approached the bar. So you could go into the BBC bar where there would be lots of executives. There would be actors from other shows that were going on or being filmed at Top of the Pops at the BBC, and you know, we would be bought drinks, usually champagne, and I would only ever have a couple of glasses because I still had to travel home that evening, and I certainly wouldn't want my mother to see me drunk, so a couple of glasses. There was one girl in particular who was 16, and she was promised some shows on the Frankie Howard show actually at the time, and she often went to the dressing room. So what she was propositioned, it may well have been to make her famous, and she was in the Frankie Howard show for a long time, one of his comedy sketches. She was often in that. Myself, no. Saw him quite a few times. Sometimes him and another DJ would host Top of the Pops. It wasn't always just a singular DJ. He was quite a touchy man, and he would certainly pick who he might want to be near him. He would certainly say, you know, I'll have that girl come over here and dance near him and things like that. So he always looked a bit weird because of his colour of his hair. At times he had half black and half white hair. He dressed in tracksuit bottoms. A bit of a weirdo, but you know, he was very famous, and he was a charity fundraiser, so he had, you know, everyone knew him, and he was probably the most famous of the DJs that did Top of the Pops. I had an opinion that he was a dirty old man, just by the touching he tended to do around the groups that were near him. He wasn't an ideal man to stand next to, let's put it that way. He was touchy, and as I say, the way that he was in his dressing room with others, that was sort of common knowledge, that he would be kissing, touching, love biting one girl in particular. She often would show with love bites around her neck and breast area. So he was a bit of a dirty old man. I mean, I never could really understand why any of the young girls, whether they be 15, 16 or 17, would like Jimmy Savile to put his hands or mouth over you anyway. I can't imagine anything worse, really. He would actually ask the floor managers, and they would come on the stage and whisper in girls' ears to go back to a dressing room. And that could have been not only Jimmy Savile, that would have been other DJs as well at the time. Well, Claire was approached by a floor manager one evening. In fact, she was taken off stage and disappeared even before Top of the Pops was filmed. And when she came back for the filming of Top of the Pops, she told me that she was going for a drink with one of the artists who was appearing on Top of the Pops that evening. And she asked if she could stay at my place because her mother obviously would not be very happy that she was 15 years of age and leaving Top of the Pops, and instead of going home, she was going for a drink with a famous singer. And I said to her, yeah, of course you can stay. And after Top of the Pops, she phoned her mum, and I spoke to Mrs. McAlpine just to confirm that Claire would come back to my place and then she'll go on to school, because she had a school uniform with her, obviously. And that's what I was expecting, that Claire would do that night. And then following that show, I saw Claire go off. There's a tunnel near the Top of the Pops that the artist used to go out the back way. And she was with this famous singer, and she disappeared down the tunnel with him. She was going to go to the BBC, and subsequently she went to the police. And I think Claire was embarrassed that things were coming out with what she'd been doing. I do think she had a pregnancy fear at that time, and the next thing I knew, she had committed suicide. And then it was in the news of the world the following week with the exploits of this girl and her diary. Very sad.
Claire McAlpine's body was discovered by her mother, lying on the floor beside an empty bottle of sleeping pills and a red diary. She was only 15 years old. The diary revealed how she had been sleeping with DJs she had met at Top of the Pops. One had given her drugs.
After the incident with the pop star, I only saw her only to look at one more time, and then a couple of phone calls of chatting. But she was worried. I think she was worried that it would all come out, what was in her diary. But I also think she was quite worried that she might be pregnant. So that was maybe even more on her mind if that had happened. She never had gone for the test, but she died during that time that she was feeling very vulnerable, and also what her mother was going to do. You know, her mum had already gone to the BBC. I remember that. I don't know if at the time her mum went to the police at the same time or if that was after her death. I'm not sure.
The diary's contents had shocked Claire's mother, Vera, who had discovered it a month before Claire had taken her own life. The News of the World reported on the story, quoting Vera as saying, "Some of the passages were so shocking that I would rather not repeat them. But the police know what they said." Vera contacted both the BBC and the police. When she contacted the BBC, she demanded to speak to someone in a senior position, only to be told that would be impossible. The BBC shrugged off the whole matter, despite the fact that Claire had been a regular participant on the show. They claimed to have spoken to the DJ in question, who had denied the allegations. Case closed. Neither Claire nor Vera were contacted for their side of the story.
She felt embarrassed that she had been to people's homes and had been to this hotel. I think it was more out of embarrassment that her school, her friends would all be aware that she was doing a little bit more than just going and dancing on Top of the Pops. It was my mother that saw me next to Claire, or just on the paper, on the News of the World. And my mother marched up to my bedroom and demanded what had I been doing at Top of the Pops. So I got into a big squabble with my mother and I was banned then from going to Top of the Pops. So I didn't see Claire, but we spoke, and then, as I say, when it all came out about her death and what subsequently had been happening at Top of the Pops, that, you know, eventually was told that it was all fantasy in her mind, that this book, this diary that she wrote these things in, was all made up. I don't believe they were made up. And it's a shame some other people didn't believe her. I think her mother believed her, what was in the diary, hence why she wanted to, you know, take the BBC, say, why is this happening to 14, 15-year-old girls? Why are they going back to DJs' houses? Why are they going to DJs' dressing rooms? And why are they going to the BBC bar?
At the inquest into Claire's death, officials had branded her as a fantasist. Her diary ended up at Scotland Yard. We will never be able to check its contents, as conveniently it went missing. Claire's half-brother Mark claims that Savile was one of the DJs named in the diary. Former BBC DJ Tony Blackburn denies ever meeting Claire.
Well, it was with the Tony Blackburn sacking of him saying that he had never met Claire or didn't know of her, when I'm aware he certainly did meet her. So he was sacked from the BBC, and I just put a comment online regarding that, rightly so, he should be sacked. And then some journalists found that comment and followed it up, and then the next thing I was approached with was the original paper, the news cutting that I and Claire were in, showing us with Jimmy Savile on stage at Top of the Pops. And this was in the News of the World, obviously. So I just made a sort of sarky comment. It's about sort of time they took him out of the BBC, which within a year he was back doing a Saturday show, and so they don't let them go that far. If you're in with the BBC, I think you've got a job there for life by the looks of it. Well, it's 50 years ago, and it will always be a sad feeling to know that girl never went on to a great life. Not whether she would have been a dancer or an actress, but lost all the things that I gained, as in marriage, family, grandchildren. And also that really she was deemed a liar, a fantasist, and the perpetrators of not only Claire have gone on to continue, as in Jimmy Savile's case, for many years. Maybe if they'd just listened to what she had said, or believed her, given her the chance. One, obviously, when her back was against the wall, no one was believing her. You know, she committed suicide. And obviously with her mother on her case, and as I say, rightly so. It's a shame. So angry that she was overlooked, swept aside, yes, but more sad that she couldn't have become the woman she could have been.